There was a time when this house was full of life. Laughter echoed through the hallways. The smell of freshly baked apple pie filled the kitchen, and every Sunday the dining table was surrounded by family. At the center of it all was Margaret. Everyone called her Grandma Maggie. She wasn't just a grandmother. She was the heart of the home. Her late husband, Robert, had built that house for her nearly 40 years ago. Every nail, every window held a memory. Before he passed away, he held her hand and whispered, "This house will always be yours, Maggie. It's our forever." And she believed it. Collins. She lived there with her only son, Daniel, the boy she had raised all by herself after Robert died. She worked 2 jobs, skipped meals, and stayed up countless nights just to give him a better life. And she did. Daniel grew up, got a good job, and eventually got married. His wife, Claire, seemed kind at first. She smiled often, spoke sweetly, and Margaret welcomed her with open arms. "You're not my daughter-in-law," she once said warmly. "You're my daughter. But time has a way of revealing truths. The warm conversations turned cold. The laughter faded. And Margaret started feeling like a guest in her own home. One evening, Daniel walked into her room with papers in his hand. "Mom," he said casually, "these are just some legal updates, tax stuff, property adjustments, nothing major. Just sign here." Margaret looked at him. The same little boy she once carried in her arms. She didn't question him. With shaky hands, she signed. That night, nothing seemed different. But everything had changed. Weeks passed. One morning, Claire knocked on her door. "We need this room," she said flatly. "You can move your things to the storage room at the end of the hall." Margaret blinked in confusion. "The storage room?" she asked softly. "It's just temporary," Claire replied without even making eye contact. Temporary? That word would become her prison. The storage room was small, windowless, filled with old boxes, broken chairs, and forgotten things. And now it held her too. The woman who once owned the house was now tucked away like something no longer needed. Her bed was a thin old mattress on the floor. The air was cold, the silence unbearable. From the hallway she could hear laughter again. But it wasn't for her anymore. Days turned into weeks. Meals were left outside her door sometimes. Other times they forgot. She stopped asking. At night she would sit quietly, holding an old photograph of Robert. "Do you see this?" she would whisper, tears rolling down her cheeks. "This is what's become of our home." Her voice would break, but no one ever heard it. Daniel stopped visiting her. The same son who once ran to her after every fall now couldn't even walk to the end of the hall. And Claire treated her like she didn't exist. Margaret began talking less, eating less, living less. The walls of the storage room felt like they were closing in. But the memories? They were louder than ever. She remembered Daniel's first steps, his first day of school, the nights he was sick, and she stayed awake holding his hand. "Mom, don't leave me," he used to say. And now, he already had. One cold evening winter settling deep into the air, Margaret felt a sharp pain in her chest. She reached for the door, her hand trembling. "Daniel," she called weakly. Her voice barely made it past her lips. She knocked softly. Once. Twice. No answer. The television in the living room was loud. Laughter filled the house again. But not for her. She slid down slowly, her back against the cold door. Her hand pressed against her chest. Tears streamed silently. In her final moments, she looked at the ceiling, her eyes filled with pain and love. "Take care of him," she whispered softly, still praying for the son who forgot her. And then, everything went quiet. The next morning, the house was busy. Coffee brewing, phones ringing, doors opening and closing. But no one noticed that the room at the end of the hall had fallen completely silent. Hours later, when Daniel finally opened the door, he froze. There she was. Still, cold, alone. For a moment, time stopped. The weight of everything hit him all at once. The memories, the sacrifices, her love, and what he had done. "Mom," he whispered, but it was too late. The silence was permanent now. The house, the money, the control, none of it mattered anymore, because the one person who gave him everything left this world with nothing. Sometimes we don't realize the value of someone until their voice becomes a memory. If you still have your parents, your grandparents, don't wait. Walk into their room. Sit with them. Listen to them. Because one day, the room at the end of the hall might be quiet forever.